Hospitality Meets is brought to you by RotaCloud, the staff scheduling app for hospitality teams. RotaCloud lets you create and share rotas, record attendance, and manage your team's annual leave, all in less time than it takes to make a brew. It can also make life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request holiday, and even pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Max Lawrence, Director of Hospitality Assured, the business and service excellence gurus. Coming up on today's show, Max tells us his favourite type of accommodation.
A half-derelict medieval farmhouse.
Phil prepares Max for what's to come on the show, and then all hell breaks loose. And Max demonstrates that he may thrive on the odd risk.
And he said, young man, you do realise you're committing yourself to £1.5 million.
All that and so much more as Max chats us through his wonderful story so far, as well as giving us some insight into the fabulous work that Hospitality Assured are doing. As always, if you're enjoying the show, please don't forget to give us a subscribe, a like and a share across your favourite social channels. Enjoy! And a huge Hospitality Meets welcome to Max Lawrence.
Good morning, Phil. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Great, thank you very much. Here on a cold winter's day. I think we're
sunny
both
though, isn't it?
Warm.
Yeah. Indeed. Well, I love winter when it's like this. When we get the sun comes out, it's dry, and it's just freezing cold. I quite like the crispness of that in the morning.
Yep, I'm totally with you. It's those long grey dark days that really weigh down on you, I think.
Yes, indeed. Anyway, here we are. Not even a minute in, we're talking about the weather already. But,
we're British.
Indeed. It's part and parcel of this podcast. It's the norm. But yeah, so you're Max Lawrence, but tell the world what you do.
So I'm Max Lawrence, and I'm Director of Hospitality Assured.
Excellent. And we will absolutely get into Hospitality Assured, I suppose, later in the conversation as we go through your journey, as it were. But give us a kind of 30-second snapshot pitch as to what is Hospitality Assured.
Hospitality Assured really is a business and service excellence standard, and we look to change and improve service delivery through cultural change. We've all been on customer service courses and all those courses, but unless you actually change the fundamental culture of the organisation, it's, in my opinion, it's a sticking plaster job.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think we've probably all been on courses whereby you do the course and you walk away motivated, and then 2 days later it's forgotten. It's never happened.
Exactly. And that's really why people become demotivated and move on to other organisations, because those frontline team members need to be listened to and they need to be able to develop themselves very much so. One of my analogies is whatever organisation, the brand is in the hands of probably the lowest paid colleague in the business.
Yeah.
So it's not the CEOs, it's not the back of house people. That brand name is in the hands of those people that customers come into contact with. And that's a massive responsibility. And what we try and do at Hospitality Assured is ensure the infrastructure behind those frontline colleagues is in place to help them deliver what they need to deliver.
Yeah, it's a really great point, because you can have the greatest vision in the world, but if that vision is not coming down the ranks and people are getting on board with it, and there's some kind of communication lost in that process, then yeah, you've got a group of disengaged people who don't really know why they're there, other than to do a bit of work to earn some money.
Exactly, and we know what the situation's like in hospitality at the moment, and we've got to switch from recruitment to retention. So it's retaining those people, making sure that they're listened to. It's imperative as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a recruiter, I couldn't agree with you more. I've always said that actually, if there was a day where us recruiters was not needed, then my work is done here and I can move on to something else. But I'm not sure that's anytime soon. But in any case,
I think you've got quite an illustrious career before you, Phil. I don't think you'll be going anywhere very soon.
illustrious, yes, that's not. I've never used that word before. Busy for sure. Yeah, but yeah, no, that's great. Well, I mean, before you did that, there's obviously a bit of a backstory to fill in. So same question I ask pretty much everybody that comes on the show. How did you get into hospitality in the first place?
Well, my parents moved from unusually moved from London to Birmingham for work. So we had no family really around us. So the friendships that were made within the city were our family largely. And my parents were quite sociable people. So if there was ever someone that was on their own on Christmas Day or Easter or whatever, they would end up at our house. um,
Right.
and that was a great grounding, really. And it shows the different people, different scenarios. But whereas my brother would say, "Oh no, what are they coming for?" I used to say, "Oh, fantastic! Can't wait,"
Yeah,
sort
I'm
of
on the
thing.
bar.
Yeah. So we had a house where there was always people, and I also had an aunt that worked in my family. Are a big Kent family from Dover, and my aunt used to work in a hotel in Dover. And when we were down there, she'd tell me all the stories of what went on and with guests and staff, and I just found it captivating.
Mm.
So, hence, I was one of the lucky young people because I'd already sorted what I wanted to do from about 14. And there were two choices: it was go into hospitality or work for the National Trust.
Right. Okay. That was pretty clear cut. That's what I want to do. Either of those two
Absolutely.
things. Right.
And I was lucky because, we've all listened to young people, they don't know what they want to do. But I was just one of the lucky ones.
Well, yeah, you're also one of the elite few on this show who, in fact, who I probably can count on one hand, actually, the people that have been on who knew very, very quickly and early what they wanted to do. So I suppose that helps in many ways because it allows you to jump on the path quicker.
It did. It absolutely did. So when I left school, I went to what was then the Birmingham College of Food and Domestic Arts,
Right.
now UCB, who gave a fantastic grounding in all areas of hospitality, really to a very high degree. Traditional flambeing and filleting at the table and all those wonderful disciplines that make it such an exciting environment and theatre for the customer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And another thing I've always been very passionate about is I consider it again, probably not like most Brits, but I consider it immense privilege to give service.
Right. Okay. Well, you definitely went into the right industry then, didn't you? That because I think that's something that's coming from the heart, like proper hospitality mentality, right there.
Yes, it is. When someone comes to you or your business with a life event, the decision process selects your business, and that takes a long time. People research, they
Mm.
look, they have conversations, and that process, when you come out as the preferred provider, they're handing you that baton to create a memory that's going to last them a lifetime. And what a privilege is that?
No, I could not agree with you more. And that, I mean, the ability to make people feel special in their moments where they want to feel special
Yeah,
is one of the greatest skills I think that exists on the planet.
absolutely. And as I say, that real moment where people come to you and they'll look back on that event, that birthday, that anniversary, that wedding for the rest of their days on earth. And they've given you the opportunity to create that memory.
Mm.
And as I say, I probably am one of the few of we're getting better at it. We are getting better at it, but the Brits are not renowned for a service culture.
Yeah, well, that's I suppose one of the reasons why this podcast exists is to try and showcase to the world that actually what you might have learned about this industry is not strictly true.
Mm.
But equally, there still has to be something, I think, that comes from within. You can see all of the wonderful benefits and what a life this industry can give you, but still, there's got to be something within you that wants to put yourself in that environment and put yourself in the situation where you have the opportunity to give these people these wonderful experiences.
You're quite right there, Phil. And let's be honest, it's hard work.
Yeah,
And if you're looking at the amount of work you want to do when you start a career, hospitality is definitely not at the top of the list, because you have to live and breathe the industry.
absolutely. So you went to college.
That,
How did it progress from there?
well, again, I got my sights fixed on joining Holiday Inns. I knew who I wanted to work for. They've been in the country for a few years. They were still doing their rollout program, and it was still the Memphis-based Holiday Inn Incorporation.
Right.
It was an exciting prospect because it was an American organization. It was very American driven. And I did a lot of research on different management training programs. But the aim of the Holiday Inn program was to learn every job in every department. It was as simple as that.
Right.
And that really appealed to me, because my ultimate goal was always to open a small hotel of my own.
Ah.
And I thought, right, if I learn every job in every department, I'm getting well on the way.
Yeah,
Um,
plus I suppose it would also give you insight into actually the thing of all of these things that actually excites you the most, because you with the best will in the world, there's usually an area of specialism that you then would go after.
That's right. So, I started in the restaurant, and again, we talk about the industry being heavily influenced by people from overseas. But back in those days, I was the only English person in the restaurant.
Really? Right.
It was solely Italian.
Right. Wow.
And again, I had a very good restaurant manager, and he said, "You're obviously one of the British nationals that can throw themselves wholeheartedly into service." But I went through the kitchens, room service, bars, reception, switchboard, HR, housekeeping, accounts. So it was a really, really good grounding. And I ended up, interestingly, as the senior night auditor.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, that's quite a specialist avenue to head down. What was it about that, I suppose, that kind of excited, or was it just one of those things? An opportunity presented itself, and you thought, actually, let's give that a go.
Well, I felt that I'd had plenty of the practical experience, and I knew my weaknesses were in the accounting side of things.
Right.
So at the end of the program, I was a night auditor, night manager, night auditor, and that really continued. And that was again, it was a great grounding for collecting the day's revenue, forwarding it to head office, etc. So I suppose I was plugging my skill gap, my weaknesses really.
Yeah, but equally, it's a side of life within a hotel that is essential. I mean, it's generally speaking, the people who are on the nights team have full responsibility for the hotel through the night.
Absolutely, and it's a tremendous responsibility.
Mm,
When I was in a hotel with 304 bedrooms at the age probably of 20.
right.
And when the night manager was off, we were in charge. So you've got potentially 500 to 600 people if those fire alarms go off.
Yeah, totally. Well, and you see at night time, you see the very best and worst of people as well, don't you?
I mean, you definitely do. It's a colourful existence.
Mm.
It's frustrating when your mates are all going out and having a party and you've got to go to work. But actually, the entertainment passes the front desk.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, and well, anyway, we probably don't need to go into that, but yeah, suffice to say, there's generally usually stories that follow people who've worked on nights.
Yes, there are plenty of stories.
Yes, excellent. Okay, so what happened next? How long were you on nights for?
So I did about 18 months on nights. Then at the end of the training scheme, I really again, thought I should go back and do a little bit more of practical experience. So took a job as assistant banqueting manager with what was then EMI Hotels, and thoroughly enjoyed that, but really felt that, again, I hadn't quite mastered the full accounting process within hotels. So I applied for a job with Lonro, who then owned Metropole, Tiny Rowlands and Lonro, and took a job at the Birmingham Metropole, which is 800
I was going to
rooms,
say it's a beast.
a cinema, 3 restaurant shop, and the job that I applied for was a revenue controller.
Right. Okay. Well, straight into the deep end then.
We did, and it's the only time I've taken on a job and sat at a desk and thought, what the hell have I done?
Right.
Because I don't understand a thing that's going on.
Right. Yeah. But well, I suppose in some ways, as long as somebody's willing to take the chance on you in that environment, and you've got the willingness to learn, then these moments can be the making of you.
That's quite true. It was a massive leap of faith
Mm.
by my boss, David Watson. But he was a hotel individual through and through, and he obviously spotted something. And I then worked with the revenue team and learned practically everything I needed to know about the accounting side, and taking previous days' figures, making sense of them, doing audits, and all that type of thing.
Mm.
And it was a fascinating role because we touched every department. So
Yeah.
we did the auditing in the restaurants, the kitchen, the shop, the cinema, reception, the bars.
Quite a lot of transactions.
It's a lot of transactions,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of people. So you practically knew everyone.
Mm. Yeah. Absolutely. And was this still? Did you still have this very clear objective in your head at this point in time that I still want to have my own place? And so actually understanding the accounts is massively important as an entrepreneur in any kind of environment. Obviously, you're probably a few steps away from that yet, but was that decision to really focus on the accounts driven by that motivation?
Absolutely, it was.
Right.
Because I was all, I was always terrible at maths at school. It
Right.
really wasn't my strong point. And, and I knew that if I was going to run a business, I had to get this under my belt. I had to understand it, what was going on.
Yeah, you highlight something really important there, I think, in the sense that the learning environment at school is not for everyone. But actually, if you put yourself into a position whereby you know what your objective is, and you know that in order to get to that objective, I need to fill in these blanks along the way, it transforms probably the excitement to learn and the ability to learn, because you're doing it because you've got a very clear objective. When you're learning maths at school, it's very generalist in that respect, and unless you've got a very clear vision that you want to go and work in finance or the financial services sector or whatever, it's kind of like, well, why do I need this? Why do I need to understand the intricacies of mathematics? But actually, when you then put that into the live working environment, whereby it makes sense as to, well, I need to understand the even if it's only loosely at this stage, the P&L of the business, and where the revenue is coming from and how we control that and how it all intertwines into itself, and that's how we then produce reports and so on and so forth. It's a very, very different learning experience.
It is, and again, you've hit the nail on the head, because I can remember sitting at my desk at school and being taught algebra and pie charts and all this type of thing, and I'm thinking I'd rather learn how to work my tax out.
Indeed, yeah. Yeah, but well, that's probably a conversation for a different podcast. But the life skills that are associated with these subjects are a different ball game altogether, aren't they? I mean, yes, algebra and trigonometry and all of these things, I don't think I've utilized any of these things since I left school. But nevertheless, some of the basics that come with maths can then be applied to a lot of different elements to your life, and not just your career. But anyway, as I say, that's a different podcast discussion probably. But yeah, so you're in as a revenue controller. How long were you doing that for, and what happened next?
I was revenue controller for about 4 years. Felt that actually I understand this now, and I've got this skill under my belt. And then really I thought, right, I need to do some European experience.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I always retained my contacts within Holiday Inn, and the brand was rolling out in Switzerland, and they did a partnership with Move and Pick, a Swiss company,
Yeah.
and I was offered the job of managing the food and beverage at Zurich Airport.
Right. Well,
Um,
that's a different ball game altogether.
it was I, I've jostled between accounting and practical skills right the way through my career, really.
Right.
And this was really putting the Americanizations of Holiday Inn into a traditional Swiss environment, which was fascinating.
Fascinating. I'm reading as a code word for challenging.
Yes, it was. And also learning a new language,
Yeah,
which
yeah, yeah.
which I thought I knew the basics of, but what they call Schweizerdeutsch, the Swiss German, is very different from German.
Right, right.
So again, once again, I ended up taking a job and being totally perplexed for the first few months, trying to work out what was going on. What are
Yeah.
these people saying to me?
God, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there actually, because when you've transferred back into, I suppose, a live, practical environment, two, different country, three, an airport hotel, four, now leading F&B as well. And the thing about airport hotels as well, I guess, is that they can be incredibly quiet, and then all hell breaks loose.
Absolutely. At the flick of a switch,
Yeah,
it can change with an
yeah,
aircraft breakdown or whatever. As you say, you can go from low occupancy to full occupancy within half an hour.
yeah,
And that's all hands on deck.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you were F&B manager? Is
Yes.
that, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I suppose now in leadership position as well. So, and what age would you have been at this point, Max?
About 22,
Okay, so
twenty-three.
still quite young
Yes. Yeah.
in that respect.
Um, and it was at this stage that I had a letter out of the blue from my boss, who I'd left at Metropole, to offer me his job as he was moving on to group. So actually going from that young, what on earth's going on, to actually being offered the revenue manager's job was quite a revelation. I didn't take it, but it was a great endorsement of the work that my boss had put into me.
Yeah, well, I thought you were about to tell me that you did take it, and
No,
here's you wrestling again between operations and finance related activity. But and so, because you mentioned that, you know, especially moving countries and into this different role, that the early stages of that were quite challenging.
yeah,
I suppose the key thing, and there's probably a great message in here, is that that's probably inevitable, right? That through your career that you come across these places whereby, and these roles whereby you are going to feel like you're out your depth in the early stages. But it's worth sticking them out, I think, on a lot of occasions. Sometimes you're just working for the wrong people in the wrong place in the wrong job. That just happens. But what made you stick it out, I suppose, rather than taking what appears to be the easier option, which is go back to the safety net of something that you were very well immersed in before this?
really, because I knew that I needed European experience.
Right.
If
Okay.
at the time, Switzerland was vying with France, if you like, as the epitome of the culinary world,
Right.
and I knew that I'd got to have, for my CV, I'd got to have that European experience, and plus I was thoroughly enjoying life in Switzerland and really being back in the fold of the Holiday Inn Corporation again.
Right. Okay. So there was in that list of pros and cons, there was more pros.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I can be quite stubborn, and I wasn't going to give in.
Right. Well, that's a good trait in this circumstance. It's definitely a good trait. So, how did that progress then from there? What happened next?
So I stayed in Switzerland for a couple of years, and then it became apparent to me that I got the large corporation experience by this time. So I really needed to look at how a small business ran. and I took a job back in the UK at a small country house hotel in the Midlands as assistant manager, and really that took my large corporation hat and scaled it down to the country house environment. Again, a totally different experience,
Mm.
totally different, with 10 employees, an owner. And again, that was most. It was enjoyable. It was very different, but almost going back to those Holiday Inn days where you were every job in every department there.
Yeah. But I guess that starts feeding into this. You're back to your original motivation around, and when you're at the very junior end and you're having to learn all of these different things. Even when you climb the ranks and you go into an environment like that, whereby yes, your job title gives you this, and maybe there's a job description that says that's your remit there. But in a smaller environment, generally speaking, you've got to take the blinkers off, and you've got to be looking left, right, and centre, and up and down and sideways, and and looking after every part of the business, even though that might not officially fall on your job spec.
Yes, and and it goes back to this customer service excellence of which I'm so passionate about. At the end of the day, if it's not your role and you see it going wrong, you have to intervene,
Mm,
because it's not you, it's not the person that's delivering, it's the customer experience.
yeah,
And for me, that will always, how is this impacting that customer?
yeah. Absolutely, and I think maybe a lot of people don't look at it that way. They look at it that I'm there for my job, and this is all about me. But and whilst that's true to a certain extent, you've got to be happy in the thing that you do. But nevertheless, in service environments, we're generally there for the delivery of service to someone else.
That's right. You are, and it's those moments and those memories that are being created all the time,
Yeah,
and there's no action. There's no replay.
no, indeed, absolutely, and well, and especially in the days and times that we live in now, whereby feedback can be immediate to a great deal many people across the stratosphere of the social media world.
Yeah, and from my perspective, that is probably a good thing. I know the user generated feedback systems are sometimes not the best friend of hospitality, but it does make you look at what you're doing.
Mm,
And yes, I mean, you have to evaluate the comments, but largely, because businesses that get it right will thrive.
yeah. You can also gauge, if one person complains about the broccoli, and I always use that as my
Yeah,
reference point because we used to get so many complaints about undercooked and overcooked broccoli on ships. Couldn't keep everybody happy with the broccoli. That was the long and the short of it. If you get one complaint about that, then that's fine. You can take these things on the chin. You
yeah,
can deal with it. But if you're getting 10, 20, 30 of the same thing, then clearly there's a systemic issue that needs to be fixed.
absolutely, absolutely, and it makes you look at those issues if they are reoccurrences. You do need to look.
Mm,
Again, food is certainly a subjective matter, and we'll all have a different opinion, but you do have to listen when it certainly wanders off the straight and narrow, shall we say.
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So, how did that develop then from there and into the country house environment? Very different from a massive corporate where I suppose there's reams and reams of structure and support. But in a country house environment, you kind of take a lot of that structure away, and you have to be the support for all things and everyone. Yeah. What happened next?
Well, I enjoyed it, but I did miss the large corporation
Okay.
world.
I find that very interesting actually because of the I suppose your desire to be to have your own place at some point. Are we still working towards this goal at this point?
We are.
Okay. So yeah, I mean in many ways my brain goes to actually moving into a smaller independent environment is going to fit your skill set better for when you go to get your own thing because the chances of you taking over a massive corporate organization as your first foray into the world of hotels ownership is probably slim. But well, you never know. You never know. But yeah, so interesting that you missed that, and so felt that you wanted to go back. But yeah, I suppose crack on with the story and your thinking.
So it wasn't so much a structured move as a headhunter move.
Okay.
The next role I took was for a quite a different role for a global conference and booking agency,
Right. Okay.
and we put together conferences and events for high net worth and hotel accommodation for high net worth individuals. And that was great because the experience that I got, you could identify decent hotels, you got lots of networks, and it was a very different. Again, this was very much, if you like, more of a marketing and crafting personal experiences role, and it was great. We had a great team there, and that gave me, if you like, exposure to lots of different styles of businesses and hotels and different rankings and where people would fit in the overall scheme of things. But again, it goes back to fundamentally providing an outstanding service for the client that you're looking after.
Hmm.
And again, creating those memories.
Yeah, this is definitely an underpinning message through your whole career so far, and actually, in fact, what you're doing now still speaks to this completely.
Yep.
So that again, I suppose clearly you have always managed to find the thing that, yes, okay, there's going to be tough moments and some of the work will be hard, but it's still the thing that speaks to your heart, and it's still, your reason for getting out of bed in the morning and all of that kind of stuff.
Yes. The reason I get out of bed is to make a customer's life better.
Yeah, I like that. That's going on a t-shirt for sure. That's kind of like there's the marketing tagline for hospitality right there.
It may sound cheesy, but to me, it's the most important thing.
Yeah,
And it's this dedic- uh, dedication to service, and I will go back to the Birmingham College of Food mantra, and it was service before self.
right. Yeah, but as I think you have to have even a little bit. You don't have to be fully consumed by that concept, but you have to have a little bit within you if you work in hospitality. And it doesn't matter whether you're a waiter or a finance director or a CEO. I still think you need to have that even 5% of you that gets that and really lives by it on a day-to-day basis.
Mhm. So, and I stayed there for a couple of years, and I'd worked with a lady there whose husband was in West Midlands Police, and she developed a stepping plate, a forensic stepping plate. And whereas the stepping plates traditionally used at a scene of crime were metal, so they were heavy, you couldn't see through them, and she had a light bulb moment as these were being put down at crime scenes. Why, if there's evidence under there, we can't see it.
Mm,
So she started, and it was a very long process for her of developing a see-through stepping plate from various materials. And of course, these stepping plates had to take the weight of people, and so they had to be robust. And there were a lot of challenges. It took her a long time, but eventually she got recognised with an MBE for her services.
services to stepping plates.
So this is a lady I worked alongside. Strangely enough, we were at a traffic island outside the NEC, and we both pulled up alongside each other, having not seen each other for, I don't know, 2 years or so. And she just wound the window down and she said, "I want you, call me."
Okay, job
And
interview
that
done.
was it. So she, um, so I had the call, and she was looking. She now established a company with offices in Perth in Australia and in the UK, and she was obviously selling stepping plates, scene of crime stepping plates, and all sorts of forensic paraphernalia, and also doing dark web tech, looking at for criminals and this type of thing. And I thought, what on earth is this going to be? But she was looking for a role, really, because they were going international. She was looking for someone to lead the hospitality role for the British embassies across the world.
Right.
So when they were rolling these out to a new country, the British Embassy would host. So I would manage the hosting of the and the liaison, and also the hospitality of people coming to the UK to look at these stepping plates and the forensics, etc. So hence you would they're not obvious bedmates, forensics and hospitality,
No.
but it
Well,
worked.
hospitality is everywhere, it seems.
Yeah. Body bags and everywhere.
God, yeah. Geez, I don't think I would ever have expected to hear these things in the same sentence when I conceptualized this podcast. But no, I mean, I suppose it's at the heart of that. If you take away the forensic element and actually just look at the business element, where again, ultimately, she's selling a product slash service to people, to other businesses, then you need to consider the guest journey, the customer journey on that whole process as well, don't you?
Absolutely. And as we'll touch on later with Hospitality Assured, that's a massive part. Hospitality is everywhere.
Hmm.
And I spent a really great 5 years with them. But again, I needed to get my own business. I took a lease on a restaurant in Stratford upon Avon.
Oh wow. Okay, so here we are. This is the moment. This is the I'm going in with 2 feet now.
That's right, and it was probably about late 20s, early 30s at this point. And I can remember the solicitor sitting me down as we were about to sign the lease. And he said, "Young man, you do realise you're committing yourself to £1.5 million in this lease, don't you?"
Uh, and
So,
did you realise you were doing that, or until that moment?
yes, I did. I
Okay.
did. But it was a massive gulp
Yeah.
as that signature went on onto the paper, and really crafted from a business plan, concept, and everything, an all day brasserie and French patisserie.
Right.
And I was looking for quality because that's, as you know, the career suggests, that's what I've always been looking for. So we did a lot of work, and we ended up having a partnership with Jenny Blanc, which is Raymond's first wife.
Right.
And Maison Blanc was the patisserie side of the business, and it had been a divorce settlement. So we launched Benson's in Stratford upon Avon, which was, as I say, all day brasserie, baguettes, patisserie, etc. And one of my other passions then became French patisserie.
I can't imagine why. It's not something to get passionate about very easily once you've had a couple.
And we had a fantastic team there. We really did. It was a very international team, French, Italian, Australian. We had colleagues from all over the world, and we were all very young, really,
Right.
or quite young, but it worked. And I was
Thankfully.
and I was with I had the business for about 12 years.
Oh, nice. Right. Yeah.
And then sold on to a new operator, and the business is still going in a different guise. Hey ho, you know, when you have your own business, you have to let go.
5-star hospitality means having the right people in the right place at the right time, and that's exactly where RotaCloud can help. RotaCloud is the online platform that makes planning rotas, recording attendance, and managing annual leave easy. Its simple, drag-and-drop interface lets you create and share rotas with your team in minutes, while our built-in budgeting tools mean you'll know exactly how much you're spending on staffing before sending the rota out. RotaCloud also makes life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request time off, and pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be.
Yeah, indeed. No, I relate in some ways because my mum and dad had a little hotel on the west coast of Scotland on an island called Tyree. And actually, they only had that for about 10 years. They put their heart and soul into that for 10 years, but I think we're ready to leave. But there was this period afterwards where we all always just used to peer over and what are they doing? What what's that now? And it's it's now completely unrecognizable from what it was when they had it, and so it should be, because the area evolves, the business requirement evolves, and all of these things evolve through time, don't they? So if that business doesn't evolve, it will just get stuck in a little time warp.
It's exactly, and it's one person's vision.
Yeah.
And what is your vision isn't necessarily how someone else sees it. So one of the disciplines now is when I've stepped aside from a business, is don't look back.
Yeah, absolutely. So where does that take us up to, Max? How old were you when you sold the business?
I was probably in my early 40s then.
Right. Okay. So you took I suppose a risk taking it on, but it sounds like you kind of knew exactly what you were doing and what your vision was. So in some ways, of course, there's always risk attached to these things, but you've got to take risks in life if you want to get ahead. But it sounds like it was a calculated risk.
It was, and I'm a great believer. If you deliver quality, people will always come and find you.
Yeah.
It was, as I say, it was just that solicitor moment. That was a real sort of, wow, this is it now.
Did your hand hover over the contract for a moment?
I think the signature might have been rather shaky.
Yeah, indeed. Well, at the end of the day, though, a 1.5 million contract is one thing, but that's obviously over the lifetime of the contract.
Right.
So you're able to then, as long as you can get cash flow into the business, then it doesn't really matter if that's 10 million, as long as it can be serviced.
Exactly, and that's what it was. But we did have some challenges, because it was at that point we then had foot and mouth,
goodness, right,
which got thrown at us, which, as a country market town, made a massive impact when the government was saying, don't go to the country, don't go to the country. And we had all that messaging, and business probably dipped about 25%. And then we had 9/11. And in a town like Stratford-upon-Avon, the impact was massive.
Right.
And business probably dipped 50% for a year.
Right. So that's, I suppose, what they call it in The Godfather: go to the mattresses, roll your sleeves up. Purpose now becomes about enduring the downturn, as opposed to making hay, as it were.
Yeah, and you go into survival mode.
Yeah,
absolutely you do. But it's a great business and a great life experience, because you realise that business is not all roses and everything in full bloom. So, things can wilt.
Indeed, but what is it? There's an old cliche I kind of live by, is that you use the good times to prepare for the bad, and the bad times to prepare for the good. And COVID taught me that, actually. And thankfully, I'd been using the good years in the run up to COVID to prepare for something that I didn't know was going to happen. So but it is business. Positivity is cyclical. So nothing good lasts forever, and nothing bad lasts forever. So, but it's about your ability to endure the bad. I think is ultimately where you can win in business in the end. Although there's probably days where you think, God, what am I doing?
And how am I going to survive?
Yeah, indeed.
But you have to have the resilience to actually stand those, and you do.
Yeah,
you do find inner resilience, because it's not just you; it's your team.
But I think this is a really important message, because this is a podcast that exists to shine a light on the great and good, but it's not naive enough to understand that everything is always perfect in every single moment of life. There's always downturns, but it's how we unite together to get past these downturns. I think is the key element for me as to how we win as an industry.
Yes, yeah, I agree completely. And then after that, there was still this nagging. I still haven't achieved that small hotel, and I'd always had a vision for it to be in the West Country,
right?
And an opportunity, a rather strange opportunity, because it was working with the National Trust, which was going back all those years to the start of my career.
Yeah.
It was the marriage of both of those. And they had a project on the Somerset Devon border where they'd taken a medieval house and renovated it, but the project had run out of money.
Right.
And they were looking for somebody to finish the project and take the business on. So the next part of it saw me trundling down to the West Country to a half derelict medieval farmhouse.
I mean, that sounds like a money pit to me.
It was rather.
Right.
But I knew it would work.
Right.
Because I'd been storing up all these thoughts and all these. Well, when I do it, I shall do it like this type of thing.
Yeah.
And obviously, for me, as I'm sure for you, sort of staying in hotels, going to restaurants is as much as a hobby as it is a profession.
Yeah.
And we all say, don't we? Oh, well, I would do it like this, and I would do it like this, and
No,
and
we
that
all
was
know
my
better.
that was my opportunity to really put my to do that. And it took 18 months. It was a 1.5-year project to get open.
Right.
Although
that's a long time without revenue.
It was, and it was supposed to be a 12-month project. And all the marketing, etc., was all planned for 12 months. But like all these things, they always take longer than you think.
They always seem to, don't they?
We got open for Mother's Day, and we were hammered.
Right. Hammered in terms of busyness, not through alcohol.
But it really gave the opportunity to really put those thoughts that I'd had all these years into perspective. You know, we would send a guest a pre-inquiry form when they made a reservation, why they were visiting, what their hobbies were. We had minibars in the rooms, and I've always hated minibar charges because you actually, you think, oh, shall I have a G&T or shall I have a bottle of wine? And then you look at the price and you think, not a good plan. And I wanted people to come away and take that away from it. So yes, there was a minibar, and we used to ask them whether they like red wine, white wine, what their favourite juices, mixers were, and we would stock the minibar with all their preferred brands and choices, and it was included in the room rate.
Right. Yeah, sounds like such a simple philosophy, but actually I can see how that adds value to the guest experience.
And again, we knew their hobbies, okay, whether they were garden, foodies, whatever. So then we could tailor the magazines in the room to their hobbies.
Right. Nice.
So it was all these nuances that we could do, even to the fact on when they checked out, we would clean their windscreen on the day of checkout. Gardener would clean the windscreen.
Yeah, but you're just leaving a good impression, aren't you?
And put a little card on wishing them a safe journey, and a little bag on the car door handle with sweets and water for the journey. Nice. It's not rocket science, and it's not difficult.
Yeah, and not ultimately that expensive.
No.
And you're adding. You're just everybody talks about the fact that always make sure you get your breakfast right, your breakfast offer right, because it's generally the last experience that people have, or last food experience that they'll have in your premises. But actually, you've taken that to the actual last experience of them being in our contact. This is what's going to happen. So what can we do to make that experience interesting and different, and get them leaving on a high?
You've hit the nail on the head there. And on our TripAdvisor review, the one thing that nearly every review mentioned was that last moment, that, oh, well, they even cleaned the windscreen for us.
Yeah.
So
because I suppose historically it's checkout at desk, was everything okay? Yeah, lovely, thanks very much, see you another time. The feeling is well, we've got your money now anyway, so just go, let's get the room turned over and get somebody else in. But actually what you've done is that you've already checked out with us, but we've loved having you here, and we're going to just show you a little bit of love before you head off.
That's it. That's it. And you know, all the research shows that those last, as you say, the breakfast, those last departing minutes are the most important. We just took it a step further, and it just proves the fact that those last minutes are vitally important.
Mm.
Because that's where the TripAdvisor reviews and the feedback that we had. Yes, they mentioned the minibars. Yes, they mentioned the magazines in the room. But the most frequent and probably the cheapest thing to do was that windscreen cleaning.
Yeah, yeah, incredible, isn't it? But yeah. So how long did you have that business for?
7 years.
Okay. Is that 7 years from purchase or 7 years from opening?
7 years from opening.
Right.
So, as I say, we had a great relationship with the National Trust because it was a lease from the trust, and you know, it was a considerably successful business. And we went on to win Best Small Hotel in the UK from Visit Britain,
Right.
which was a tremendous accolade to the team that
insignificant. We had. Yeah.
And really, after that, you think, what next?
Mm. Well, because you've achieved that original goal now, right? You've done it. Tick. So yeah, how do you reinvent? What's next?
And I'd always be, right from my days with Holiday Inn, I was always fascinated by consistency. How do you deliver a product consistently across the globe to a brand standard? And one of my projects with the Forensic Pathways Company was actually putting in an ISO 9001 system. So again, we're looking at how you deliver consistent quality.
Mm.
And the Institute of Hospitality had their Hospitality Assured standard, which was really, the concept was to deliver professionalism and quality to the industry. So I thought, well, let's give this a go. And this was before we'd sold the hotel, but still working alongside. So I was offered a role as a self-employed assessor, and that entailed going through some assessment qualifications, etc., and working as part of a team to deliver to the industry the quality standard. And that's really taken me to my role now, where I'm director, and we've seen. We touched on it earlier about hospitality is everywhere, because when I first started, it was very much a product where it was the traditional hospitality, so hotels, restaurants, conference centres, and the biggest growth markets that we have now are in facilities management, care homes, and universities.
Right. Well, I can understand care homes because we're of the boomer generation now, right? We're hitting that kind of age category, I guess, where that might become more prevalent. But the other two, that's really interesting. Actually, I wouldn't necessarily have thought that.
Well, universities are realising they've got customers, not students.
Right. Well, I mean, students are paying enough for the service of being educated, aren't they? Really.
Exactly, and they're developing these food concepts, but their competitors are the high street.
Yeah.
And if they don't get it right on campus, then the students will migrate to the high street.
Yeah. Well, God, now you've triggered memories of my experience of our rectory, I think they called it, or refectory, something like that, where the food offer was, I mean, so terrible, but because it was cheap and you were a student, that was really all you cared about. But I would imagine that as palates become more enlightened and people's awareness of food is more enlightened than it was 20 years ago, then this is something that you've really got to be considered about.
Yeah, absolutely. Student bars, if it's not on trend, they'll go to the local bar or the local trendy pub or wherever.
Yeah.
So the aim of the universities is to keep these people on site. So let's create something that's in line with the high street. And similarly with facilities management, which is an area that I would never have considered in the early days of Hospitality Assured. But again, the marketplace has changed, and we're getting we're getting a lot of large high-tech buildings in London and the provinces. And they're quite complex to manage these days when you've got building management systems, engineering, technology, and everything. So the trend tends to be that CEOs are actually looking at what they do. So what's our core function? Okay, do we sell insurance? Do we sell phones? Do we sell this? Well, that's what we should concentrate on, not running the building infrastructure.
Right.
Let's get specialists in to do that.
Got you. Yeah. Well, I mean, that makes sense.
Absolutely, it makes sense. So they're getting third-party operators in to actually run the infrastructure. And these are quite high-profile businesses. Well, they're very high-profile businesses. And the deals that are done in those buildings run into multi-million pounds.
Indeed, yeah.
So going back to those early conversations that we had, everyone that walks through their door needs a world-class welcome.
Yeah.
They've flown in from wherever, Australia, Abu Dhabi, wherever. They're staying probably at a high-end property in London, and their whole concept of the business is in the hands of those people that greet them.
Yeah, and equally, I suppose if that's a third-party operator as opposed to being in-house, then you have to get that alignment sorted. Because a third party, of course, they can be given a brief, but they really have to kind of get on the inside, and they've got to really understand what the company stand for, and what does a world-class welcome look like to them, and all of these kind of things.
And again, you're spot on. Because the third-party operators really, they're running engineering, they're running cleaning, they're running reception, they're running catering, everything that's peripheral to that business operating. And as you say, you're putting your brand in the hands, not now of just your own frontline colleagues, but actually a third party's frontline colleagues. So actually the understanding and the partnership working that's involved in facilities management is massive.
Yeah.
And we go in and we craft the services of the third party operator, but also act as a measurement for the client.
Right. Got you. Yeah. Right. I mean, it sounds very interesting work, because I suppose equally you've got quite a cross section of different clients who all will have a different requirement, and so you've got to wear probably a few different hats when you come into environments like that.
You have, but they're hospitality hats. Every one of them is a hospitality hat,
right,
because that's what we're looking. And we're really privileged to work with businesses that have a different mindset.
Right. Okay.
Because you have to be very brave to take Hospitality Assured, because you're opening up your business to total scrutiny.
Right.
And some people get it and some people don't.
Yeah.
And we can tell if it's not going to work, and we'll walk away from it, because we never want anyone to do Hospitality Assured for a plaque on the wall.
Yeah.
There has to be a business benefit.
No, indeed. And I think equally that comes back to what you were talking about way back at the beginning of the chat as well, around this focus on retention.
Yeah.
This is a massive piece of that jigsaw, because you're almost anybody who kind of takes you guys on board is saying to the world, we're taking this bloody seriously. And, we want to, we don't just want it to be a plaque on the board, on the wall. We want this to be something that we live and breathe every single day. And by doing that, they're also, I suppose, showing to the world. It's almost like getting that 5-star hygiene rating in your window, right? It's like telling to the world, look, we're not playing at this. We're serious about making sure that we're developing world-class cultures that people want to come and work in.
Absolutely, and it is that we're dealing with businesses both at a very high end. That, as I say, they're world-class businesses, and that world-class welcome is all part of the package.
Yeah.
And they're investing millions and millions, if not billions of pounds in these buildings. If one client we're working with at the moment is going through, it's a global business, but they've built a head office right in the centre of London, and they're going through a hotelification project.
Right.
Which is literally to make head office like a hotel.
Yeah.
And also that this, if you like, vision where businesses are also struggling to get colleagues back into the office.
Right. Yeah.
You know, as we all know, the workplace has changed. So actually, we've got to make the work environment fun. And we've got to, and we've got to deliver great food. We've got to deliver spotless cleaning. We've got to deliver a fantastic welcome. So that actually to entice those people back into the office,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you?
Yeah. And you're giving them a few reasons as to why you should want to come back in and be in your place of work.
You know, and it's bringing in that health and well-being part where, you know, at lunchtimes we'll put on some events, we'll put on some mindfulness sessions, we'll put on some yoga sessions, we'll open a bar. Again, we're keeping people on site after work rather than, and also those spaces are very, very expensive, and most of them now come with an event department to actually attract outside business.
Yeah, this is a total. It just shows you how much the industry of hospitality touches the world. You know, not beyond what you might even think. It's going beyond that now. It's hospitality in the workplace.
It is, and the same goes for care homes, because CQC look after the clinical side of it. So actually, that CQC model is prevalent, hopefully anyway, throughout the care side of it is pretty much standard, and the CQC measures that. The big question that people are asking, and you mentioned the baby boom generation. The baby boom generation are not going to go into a care home per se.
Right. Okay.
They are looking for more of a lifestyle experience.
Right.
So they're the hospitality side of it. Okay, well, what's the food like? Some of them are now coming with pools and gyms. They bring the most of the ones that we work with now have got coffee shops within them, and you know, you may have seen it in the press. Probably about 12 months ago, the first care home has got an AA rosette. Now, who'd have thought that?
Yeah, no.
So we're switching this care home vision to hotels with permanent residents.
Well, that's ultimately what they are.
Well, yes, they are. That's exactly it. And the selling point for the care home community, it isn't going to be the care. Yes, the care's got to be important, but that's pretty much governed by CQC. It's what's life going to be like there for my mum and my dad?
Yeah, no, indeed.
Or what's it going to be like for me?
Well, indeed. Like? Hopefully, we all get old enough to get there. You know, but I mean, I think it's wonderful, Max, and I think it's also wonderful that, you know, you're involved in so many different types of businesses. And I also know you work with Inverness Airport, as an example. And I know that because they've been the recipient, I think maybe even the last 2 years, at the IOH awards, when you do your own awards within that section, that they've been winning. And that's close to my heart because I have two family members that work there, one on the passenger assistance side, and the other one I think is just a kind of general gopher type assistant. But that speaks volumes to me because they both bloody love working there. You know, so that whatever it is that you're doing is working because it's filtering through to the people that matter the most, which is, as we come back to what we're talking about all the way back at the beginning, you know, is the boots on the ground. It's the people who are actually delivering the service to the guest in whatever form that looks like. But it sounds like you're such a critical conduit between that CEO vision in whatever business that might look like and getting that message down whilst imparting your own knowledge of what hospitality really, really looks like.
Yeah, and you know, we're immensely proud working with Inverness Airport because it's a small regional Highland airport, and it constantly receives the highest scores for service delivery from the Airport Quality Commission in Europe.
Right.
So how is that happening? How, you know, and as you say, you know, we very much look at it, or I like to look at it, as a bit of an inverted hierarchy. Actually, those colleagues on the front line are the most important. They've got your brand, and all the infrastructure and the CEO are underneath supporting that mechanism.
Yeah.
Rather than looking at it, if you like, the other way around.
Yeah.
And I believe firmly, and I can prove that actually that way of thinking delivers results. It can be perhaps controversial sometimes if you don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
But it is as I say, that your brand is in the hands of everybody that the customer comes into contact with. It's
Yeah.
not the CEO, it's not the accounts department, it's not marketing.
And I suppose your success is probably reliant on complete buy-in from top to bottom.
Absolutely. So a typical hospitality assured assessment will be an hour or two with the CEO to get the vision, the values, the whole feel of the organisation. And then we go right through the organisational structures to middle management, and then we go right through to the frontline teams. So we're checking all those conduits, all those links. Okay, if the CEO is telling us we're the biggest, we're the best, but if your frontline team don't know that and what the vision is and how you're going to get there, you're not going to get there, are you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And as I say, it's a massive privilege. And when we go back to somewhere like Inverness Airport, and you've written your findings, you've given them pointers, and you go back, and actually they're there, they've done it.
Yeah.
That is probably one of the most rewarding feelings you could ever want, because you're saying they listened, they've improved, they recognised it, and I helped them get there.
I can only imagine. It's yeah, and I think we need to shout about the companies that are taking this stuff seriously, because for me it's one of the main reasons or the main ways in which we fight back against this negative perception of what it is to work in hospitality. Because actually, if you've got more and more companies who are taking this stuff seriously, who are devoted to the people that come and work in their environments, and then you can see the benefit that that's having on the business, then that's how we ultimately become the greatest industry to work in.
Yes.
And a career of choice, as opposed to the career I fall back into.
Exactly, and I think as hospitality professionals, all of us, that I find that very hurtful. When people say, "Oh, well, I'm just doing it because," it's a career.
Yeah.
And I think personally, British hospitality has a lot to offer. We've got some fantastic brands, such as the Pig and Hoxton and Harbour Hotels and all those, that can be rolled out. We've got a very strong industry, but we're not recognised.
Yeah.
And we're not recognised by if you like, the officials, i.e. government, and we're not recognised probably, if I think it's fair to say, by the population in general.
Indeed. Well, I think
but I'd sum it up by saying hospitality, the industry, it's a fantastic conduit for social mobility, and it's a fantastic conduit for redevelopment of rundown areas.
Yeah.
I went to South Africa, and the area was described as edgy but up and coming, but there was a Hilton there.
Yeah, so that's the real estate agent speak, isn't it? The up and coming area means there's some development to be done.
Yeah, and it was probably more edgy than up and coming,
Right.
but they put a hotel right in the middle of it, and slowly you could see that regeneration evolving.
Yeah, well, I mean, it creates jobs, doesn't it, for that local community, and then that feeds the money out into that community a little bit further, and so on and so forth. And as you say, it's a wonderful conduit to social mobility. And I don't think anybody's actually used that as a reference point as to why this is such a wonderful industry. So I think you might be a pioneer on the show, Max.
Yeah, well, it is, and I work with a lot of young people, mentoring, and people from all sorts of backgrounds, and hospitality can take you it's taken me to places I never dreamt I could go.
Yeah. And
I've got friends, there's not many cities around the world that I can't pick the phone up and say, "Oh, I'm coming over, can we get together, or or anything?" It's massive. It may not be the highest paid, but the benefits outweigh the pay brand, and that's getting much better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you get, as I say, I'm immensely passionate about hospitality as an industry and where it can take you from whatever background.
I could not agree more. And that to me sounds like a wonderfully positive way to wrap things up. Max, thank you so much. What a fantastic journey you've had so far. I for one, am a massive fan of what you're doing with Hospitality Assured, something that I wasn't particularly aware of until maybe about a couple of years ago. And but I think industry should be getting right behind what you guys stand for and what you're trying to achieve, because I think with more of that, we take a massive stride forward.
Well, thank you for that. I absolutely love Hospitality Assured, and I know it works because I've seen it work. And it has to be, you have to get it. You either get it or you don't.
Yeah, and as you say, the ones who don't, that's fine, no problem. We move on.
Yeah, but those that get it, go on to blossom, prosper, and thrive.
Yeah, without question. Max, thank you so much. I wish you a very pleasant day and year ahead, and I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Great, Phil, and have a great 2024.
You too. Thanks so much. Cheers. And there we have it. A wonderful career so far from Max, also with some twists and turns and some things I thought I'd never hear mentioned in the same breath as hospitality. We will of course be back next Wednesday with another wonderful story from hospitality, but until then, thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.